I'm Adrienne Ginter. I've been working in paper for, I don't know, maybe 12 years now. I went to school for painting and got into the paper cutting towards the end of grad school at BU. My studio building is awesome. This is the best studio I've had. It's right in downtown Brattleboro. So I do paper cutting, 2D, and then I've been recently getting more into 3D. All my work is about nature, fertility, life cycle, flora, fauna. We live in Vermont. There's a lot of examples. Most of the time the paper that I'm using is Canson Metientes. So it's a pastel paper that's actually pretty thick, so it can make for some laborious cutting. But I need the thickness to the paper because I need that paper strength. I'm using a ton of different types of X-Acto blades. Absolute favorite is this, which is a little swivel knife. People ask me a lot about time with my work because cutting takes a lot, or just takes a lot of time. But the interesting piece is what is behind the scenes. So this piece is called Rain, and it's finished and will be part of the show, and it's probably one of my favorite pieces. But these, like hydrangea or flower or whatever they are in the front, I think I did 3 attempts to get that where I needed it. So from those cast off hydrangea pieces, this became a whole nother piece, and that happens often. Everything I'm working on is in reverse, and I'd never sketch it out before, but I do always have a plan when I'm going into a piece, more an idea or the storyline, which is what I start with, and then I kind of go from there. I had the start and I knew what I wanted it to be, but now I'm kind of struggling, so I have this paper that I'll lay out, and I'll just try to kind of figure out what my next step is. I want to just have one more kind of viney thing that pulls it all together, because right now it's kind of sagging right here, so I'm going to need some sort of support for that. Because when it's holding up, it's going to be just kind of flopping. And what I'm doing in between each layer is I'm just gluing archival foam core, and that's what gives it the thickness. So some of these, my older ones, are quite flat. Then my newer ones, they actually have quite a bit of depth to them, 1 inch to 2 inches. And everything I'm doing all the pencil lines on the back. So I just line this up, and I usually just will tack it with artist tape. Once I have that, I'll just kind of take it over and start cutting. And draw more what I need. And the trick that I have to do is I always have to do my smaller cuts first. So if I cut out this big expanse here where I'm not gonna have anything, then my paper becomes really weak. So it always takes me a while to see my own progress, because I'm starting with the littlest, teeniest cuts first, and that goes for the whole thing. And then I work up to the bigger areas that I want to take away. And you have to do a little teeny bit of an overcut to get what you want from the small stuff. It's on this piece, I tacked it right here, and maybe right here too. I tacked it a little bit, but I'm not gluing the whole thing. For some of the flatter pieces, when I wasn't doing the archival foam core, I am gluing the whole thing on top of it. And then as my borders get smaller, as I go back to both the foam core and a paper, but I have to leave some sort of border so that I have that strength, just both in the paper, and the bigger the frame I have that I leave, the stronger the paper. And my front piece has to be cut very well, or else it looks weird when it's behind the mat. But I cut everything by hand. I'll use a ruler to sometimes draw the line, but I won't use a ruler when I cut it, because then it looks too machine made. More sculptural pieces, this is more my palette, and something I've been using recently too is a thinner paper, like a rice paper or a mulberry paper, which will soak up the pigments. When I was pregnant with first daughter, I couldn't lean over the drafting table as well. So I started making these 3D projects, and I think this is one of my first ones. And it's with the same paper, but painted with Holbein acrylic gouache. And it has to be Holbein, because it's almost like an acrylic paint. Like a regular gouache is really just like a pigmented watercolor, but this is once it's down, it's pretty permanent. And I was painting swatches of paper and then cutting the paper to make these 3D models. With them, I'm thinking a lot about families and their relationship to each other. So these two, there's a little bit of painted styrofoam in the top. Oh, and a wire that I'm gluing it to. But it's a little family. So I like the 3D piece because I can do both, swap around more, and I have a quicker sense of completion, depending on the size or how quickly things go. It just seems like it moves faster. I'm not stuck on the same color for weeks, just cutting the same piece of paper. So this is how I start usually. I use a lot of toothpicks. So that's my base. And then to make this fluff out of my painted paper, that I'm just usually doing with scissors, kind of shaving little pieces. When I get a little sprout like that, sometimes I'll wrap a little wire around, or I'll glue, and I'm using PVA glue for this, but trying to always keep the glue hidden. And I'm gradating colors too, so I'll have darker or lighter in the middle and go down to this darker color, and then the leaves. And then these are just stuck on little wires, or sometimes I'll do this on a little piece of paper too. And then this is what I'm working on most recently. More mixed media, air dry clay, that Holbein acrylic gouache, beads, paper, thread, and they're all about fertility and earth. I'm just trying to figure out how to incorporate the clay, or really push the paper and do more with the paper. So this is what I'm working on right now. So the styrofoam is really just a base, so I have something to poke into. So some of this is clay. This is that paper stuff I made. And then this piece is gonna fit on top here. And I'm using super glue gel PVA, wire, hold-on, and they're really just about stacking and putting different components together and how to make them fit. Thank you for taking the time to watch this and visiting my studio with me and hearing about my process. I have a lot of fun. I hope you did too.